The ticking clock to avoid defaulting on the national debt. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has already warned the U.S. could run out of money to pay its bills by June 1st. ABC 10 News anchor Kimberly Hunt is live in downtown with how this is affecting San Diegans. Hi, Kimberly.
Yes, it will affect everyone, Melissa, for sure. And I am right here at Tuna Harbor Park, and government leaders still have not come to an agreement on the debt ceiling. The U.S. officially hit its debt limit in January, and that prompted the Treasury to use what it calls extraordinary measures by pausing certain government investments to continue honoring the government's obligations. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the ability to use those measures could end as soon as June 1st. And that as the U.S. runs out of cash to pay its bills if the debt ceiling isn't either raised or suspended. And that is just 10 days away. While the U.S. has never defaulted on its debt, it has come close, most notably back in 2011. Back then, lawmakers agreed to raise the debt ceiling just days before the U.S. ran out of borrowing power. And that led to credit rating agency Standard & Poor's downgrading the U.S. credit worthiness for the very first time. The fallout caused stocks to tumble, with the Dow dropping 17% in the weeks following that downgrade. A default would have negative impacts for all Americans, but in a military city such as San Diego, it could be even greater. And here's what USD professor Alan Ginn had to say about the military effect on our local economy.
A report last year indicated that the impact on the local economy due to various aspects of military spending is about $56 billion.
Professor Ginn broke that down to about $13 billion in payroll to active military and DoD employees. Another $19 billion goes to local contractors producing goods and services for the military, and another $3.5 billion go to military veterans and retirees. We spoke to the president of San Diego Veterans Coalition. He said the stoppage in payments would trickle down.
There is potential for a huge ripple effect that are going to affect. If you talk about people that are earning their living from those systems, even the ancillary, like the taco shop near the base, or the food trucks, all of those people who their livelihood comes off of that, it could be huge.
According to the New York Times, some ideas have been floated to make sure the U.S. does not miss critical payments past deadline. And one idea is the Treasury Department would prioritize payments to bondholders who own U.S. Treasury debt. But Treasury Secretary Yellen seems to be ruling it out, saying that such an approach would not avoid a debt default in the eyes of markets around the world. Well, there is a bipartisan group in the House that hopes to break the gridlock on the debt ceiling, known as the Problem Solvers Caucus, and it's currently made up equally of 28 Democrats and Republicans. And one of those is Democratic Representative Scott Peters from San Diego. Here's what he had to say when we asked him about his thoughts on solving this problem.
I think a better approach is what the Problem Solvers have done. I'm the co-chair of the Debt and Deficit subcommittee of the Problem Solvers. We came up with a framework that's a debt ceiling extension, some cap on spending, or some limitation going forward, some mechanism to deal with long-term debt and deficit, which is what people say they care about, what I care about, which we think is a commission of experts that would give us an up or down vote before we hit this debt ceiling thing again, and some budget reforms in the House that would make the budget process much more meaningful and accountable.
We reached out to Republican Congressman Darrell Issa to get his perspective on the situation. He was not able to join us for an interview today. And how bad could it really be is just an educated guess, as the U.S. has never defaulted on its debt before, and it would be uncharted territory. But we will, of course, be following any developments out of Washington. But that does it for us as we wrap it up right here in the shadow of the USS Midway Museum, with the iconic statue of the sailor kissing the nurse after World War II right behind me, and our military members, both active and retiree, literally right now holding their breath for what will happen in the next 10 days. Melissa?
All right, Kimberly, it really will affect so many people. Thanks so much.